What to the Negro is the 4th of July? Did Frederick Douglass actually use that sentence? There is good scholarly reason to doubt that Frederick Douglass ever used that sentence, because it contradicts his entire life and just about every other word he's ever written. The Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, a book written by Frederick Douglass, a book that you should read for yourself. If I quoted the parts where Frederick Douglass describes how he learned of freedom and how he learned the value of freedom, I would be reading for hours. In chapter 11, the chapter entitled Growing in Knowledge, Frederick Douglass describes how he obtained a book called The Columbian Orator. Frederick Douglass describes this book as a rich treasure and a noble acquisition. What is the book, The Columbian Orator? It is a book of speeches, dialogues, and other writings on various subjects like freedom, tolerance, the rights of man, slavery, and various historical events. Frederick Douglass uses words like these to describe this book. With a book in my hand so redolent of the principles of freedom, I met there one of Sheridan's mighty speeches on the subject of Catholic emancipation, Lord Chatham's speech on the American War, and speeches by the great William Pitt and by Fox. These were all choice documents to me, and I read them over and over again with an ever-increasing interest, because it was ever gaining in intelligence. For the more I read them, the better I understood them. Frederick Douglass, the young black slave boy, is describing the experience of his awakening to the value and meaning of freedom. And from where does he learn the value and meaning of freedom? From speeches. Speeches in a book. Speeches on historical events in which men, white men, advocated for freedom, tolerance, human rights, and equality. Speeches in which white men extolled the values of freedom. And those speeches on freedom took root in the very heart and soul of a young black slave boy named Frederick Douglass. So we'll call these just my early comments on the subject of representation, by which I mean the concept of representation that is commonly being used today by blacks, women, Asians, and others as the reason for why whites must give them certain things like jobs and degrees, etc. Representation is just, it's nonsense. In order to learn the values of freedom, Frederick Douglass, the black slave, does not need representation. Frederick Douglass, the human being, learns the meaning and value of freedom from other human beings. Frederick Douglass happens to be black and a slave, and he learns the value of freedom from human beings who happen to be white and considered free. I could run down the entire list of values and ideas: freedom, democracy, justice, equality, etc., all of which were learned from white males, all of which were learned without representation. Africa didn't practice democracy or teach its people the meaning and value of freedom, not even unintentionally. If you value democracy, or claim to value democracy, there have only been two groups in history that have practiced democracy: white Greek males and white American males. Did Frederick Douglass actually say, "What to the Negro is the 4th of July"? That sentence is absolutely surreal. What we have here is one individual authorizing himself to speak not just for another individual, but on behalf of an entire class of individuals, the Negro or the slaves. They have not asked him or authorized him to speak on their behalf, and he has not surveyed or questioned them. And as an even greater philosophic affront, he is not even speaking for them as though they were a second self. The speaker is testifying to the personal feelings of another human being as though they were objects. The sentence, What to the Negro is the 4th of July includes a direct reference to a human celebration of independence. The crown jewel of that celebration is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these, included but not limited to, this is a sample. Among these, as a descendant of American slaves, I think the phrase, the being of Dasein is not the same as the being of the ready to hand or present at hand, should be included among these. Among these, included but not limited to, this is a sample of the unalienable rights endowed by the Creator: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In the sentence, what to the Negro is the 4th of July, the speaker is not only reducing other people to objects, he is violating the sacred right of self-determination, which is the embodiment of the 4th of July, which he makes a direct reference to. Self-determination. You are independent, autonomous, and have a right to pursue your own self-interest, a right to decide your own course in life. Self-determination includes the ability to express yourself, to speak your mind, to express your opinions and your reactions to the world around you. The sentence, what to the Negro is the 4th of July, also fails as rhetoric. It is 1852. Frederick Douglass is becoming a national figure, speaking out against slavery, making speeches trying to persuade Americans to stop supporting slavery or stop being indifferent to the institution. This means that in the crowds that Frederick Douglass is addressing, there are Americans who support or don't care about the institution of slavery. Frederick Douglass tells these people that their holiday, their celebration of independence, has no meaning for the oppressed and the slave. Wouldn't the people who support slavery and or are indifferent to it think that that was a good thing? I haven't made a reference to Derrida yet in this video, so here goes. In the essay, Signature Event Context, Derrida says, but even the green is either itself still signifies an example of agrammaticality. The sentence, what to the Negro is the 4th of July, is complete nonsense. It contradicts the life experiences of Frederick Douglass. It violates the sacred right of each individual to self-determination. It violates the basic principles of philosophy. And as rhetoric, it is a complete failure. And yet, despite all of that, it is still being used as a signal to convince blacks to take no interest in the 4th of July. Why? Because the 4th of July represents a danger. In America, whenever the Declaration of Independence is cited, it is the usual practice to begin with the second sentence and completely ignore the first sentence. The first sentence of the Declaration of Independence runs like this. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. The 4th of July is the celebration of the dissolution of the political bonds between the king and the colonists. There was the king and there were the colonists. The colonists were the subjects of the king. The king was the leader of the colonists. The colonists looked at the king and the colonists said, he did this, he did that, and he did this. This hurt us, that hurt us, and this hurt us, and he could care less. And the colonists said, This is unacceptable. We're going to dissolve our relationship to the king. And that's what they did. And this is what makes the 4th of July dangerous. What if black people began looking at their leaders? They sold us into slavery. They taught the Europeans to devalue people with a dark skin. They destroyed the black family. They taught the black woman that the black male is the enemy. They emasculated the black male and at the same time blamed the black male for the damage that they themselves are doing. They miseducate our children. They make fools of our children, and they teach our children to call themselves the N-word.